Was a girl running in our group. She had a high-speed motor in a 40 Ford Coupe. She had a racing cam and a supercharged. Look at Buddy, hot rod and large. She's a hot rod. She's a hot rod.
A couple of real quick things we got to talk about before we get into our new little thing that Chuck and I are going to do for a while, just for a few weeks. ExxonMobil and Toyota, that's a couple of bedfellows, formed a partnership to test out low-carbon fuels in gasoline engines, potentially offering a way for drivers to reduce emissions without upgrading to an electric vehicle. That's not going to go over very popular with the powers that be in America. United States, the fat cats. The fuel blends are made from cleaner feedstocks and could one day cut greenhouse gas emissions from internal combustion engines by as much as 75% compared with regular gasoline, says Andrew Madden, Exxon's vice president for strategy and planning, citing initial test or trial results. The fuels prove compatible with Toyota vehicles, raising the prospect of a drop-in solution that could compete with battery-powered cars in the future. I always said America's got to have a choice, Chuck. We can't all be told we got to buy electric. The fuels are very much at the test phase and would require government policy support before becoming commercially available. Don't hold your breath on that one, boys. Madden said in a Wednesday interview, he said that in a Wednesday interview, this guy, Andrew Madden, Exxon's vice president. Oh, boy. They're mostly a mix of existing feedstocks like renewable biomass and ethanol produced using cleaner processors. In other words, there's going to be an alternative, Charles, to electric cars. And who is not going to like that? The electric car makers and the politicians and everybody that's pushing them.
Right, everybody that bankrolled it. Right?
Everybody that's got follow the money, my dad used to say.
Exactly.
He had a lot of great sayings. And I got to tell you, Chuck, my next story is probably the most important one not the most, it'll be the second most, do today. 29% of customers charged above MSRP and above sticker told GFK they would never buy that brand of vehicle again. Whew, that's almost a third of the customers paid more than sticker price for a new vehicle in December 2022. Sales which GFK, whoever that is, GFK Research, indicates might cost the retailer or manufacturer repeat business from some of those customers. Oh, I bet it will. I know a lot of people will never buy another one.
Right.
27% of customers who paid more than sticker told GFK they would never buy that brand of vehicle again. Julie Kenner, GFK Senior Vice President of Counseling, noted on a GFK webinar in March 16th, while automakers have no control over dealership pricings, brands are still being negatively impacted. They have every bit of control over the dealers. Come on. 31% of buyers charged above sticker told GFK they advise other consumers to avoid that dealership, and 29% plan to never use that retailer for service.
Okay, so I'm going to call my second digression here of the show.
Okay.
Because I was actually thinking about this earlier this week, because I ran into somebody in the family that had a bad experience, and that was kind of their opinion, was they took it out on that particular car, that particular manufacturer, one of the big three. And so I was thinking about this because, what ends up happening, I think a lot of times now is you have, let's just say, an unscrupulous used car salesman.
No.
Put it nightly. So this is what I wanted to ask you about, though.
Did he have white shoes on?
Well, and again, and I told the guy, the first thing I said is, you should have told me. I would have brought it to Big George because he'll take a look at it, give it a once over before we do anything. I tell everybody, I said, you got to get that car inspected, especially like you said now, people are trying to sell anything. But so going back to this, now you have an unscrupulous used car salesman that has sold somebody a car. And the manufacturer has no idea, they have really but this is the thing, George, they have very little say And
I know.
There's very little oversight. This used car guy, he could, jack up your financing.
Well, it's a resale. They have nothing to do with resale.
But here's what I'm saying, though, is that used car salesman has now affected the brand.
Yes.
And this is the thing, is that you're trying to create, so this is kind of the way to look at it, is you have people, there used to be people that, I'm a Ford man, I'm a Chevy man, and you bought 5 Fords in your entire life or 5 Chevys. Now you've got people, it's like, well, I bought a Chevy and I got a bad deal there, then I bought a Ford, so I mean, it's kind of like one of those things is that you're making a little money on the front end. You're making, maybe the dealer and the salesman's making an extra couple $1,000s on the deal, but then you're never going to see them again.
No.
It seems to me that you're better off trying to get a customer for life.
Absolutely. You want to build a customer base.
And it seems like, and again, it seems like a lot of these car dealers, they just want to make that money today. They don't care about, I mean, again, they're not part of the family. They're not going to be there that long. They're not about they're not trying to protect. And that's what I'm wondering is what, to your point, it's interesting that you brought up the story. What can anybody do about an unscrupulous car dealer?
You can't. And they're all unscrupulous. They're all getting overstepped.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying is that so all you're doing.
But there's a reason for that.
Okay.
Controlled inventory.
Right.
They have to sell so many cars a month to pay their bills.
Right.
And if they don't sell that many cars, then they better sure as heck make more money per car.
Okay.
That pays the bills. And the dealership, I mean, the manufacturers now said they are participating in controlled inventory.
Okay.
So there's not that many cars. So you don't have the big choices. You ever go walk in and you wanted a blue car, you had 10 blue cars to pick from.
Right.
Now there's 2. And you're going to buy one of them. And you are going to buy one of them if you want blue. That's just how it's going to be. And they're going to want a lot of money for it because they could have sold you one a long time ago and then sold some more. But they only had 2 blue ones.
Right.
It's kind of a double-edged sword. The dealers are unscrupulous, yes. I agree 100%. But they're doing it to keep themselves afloat. Well, they're not just keeping themselves afloat. I told you in 21 they set the biggest record for the most money made by dealerships in the country.
So to your point then is that the manufacturers are sort of spiting themselves here by controlling the inventory because so they in a way they're helping to enable that bad behavior by limiting inventory, but they're ultimately doing themselves a disservice.
Absolutely, they are.
And so that's
absolutely.
So I mean, these, again, I think the thing is that you have these companies that still have that monopoly mindset. Well, there's 3 companies. Choose, pick. Now
Take
there's
one. Yeah.
and it's not that world anymore. You have Tesla, you have Rivian. Who knows how many electric vehicles will come out next year? So this idea of you have to pick one of us. It's like you have to pick a Ford or a Chevy. Those days are over.
Yeah, those days are definitely over.
Maybe their mindset needs to change if they want to keep. They're having that problem now as they're trying to catch up to Tesla and people like that. This is not helping.
You don't always have to buy a Ford, Chevy, or Chrysler to buy American.
Right.
Because they're all built here.
Well, that's the other thing is you have to buy American guys. You could buy any car now. Right.
Any car's made here.
Right.
They're all made here.
Right.
I don't know if Mercedes. Yeah, Mercedes has a plant.
A lot of them down south, yeah.
Yeah, there are.
But still, I mean, you're still buying an American car.
Yeah, you are. You're buying an American car and you're paying for it, too. Too much. We have a little something we want to try, Chuck and I. I stumbled on a big list of new technology that's coming. They predict. Automotive News has said this is the future. These things are going to be on your car, and you're going to pay for them, of course. And I don't know that all of them are even necessary. But we're going to get Chuck to go through this list, and tell me what you think about the first one.
Okay, so George just handed me a stack of kind of ideas here, and I wanted to go. So this first one's interesting, George, is because we've talked about this before, is one of the issues that you're going to run into with the electric cars is you can't, the climate control can't be the same as it used to be. And so, now when we're counting miles, we're counting our range. It's not like you could just, okay, I'm, stop at the gas station, whatever. Now we have to plan our trips a little bit better. That's the future. We have to plan our trips a little bit better because you can't call your boss and say, sorry, boss, I had to stop and charge my car. I'll be an hour late.
Yeah, I'll be an hour late because I had to plug in.
So this first technology is specifically about electric cars and climate control. So this is the heat belt, a new technology developed by German parts manufacturer, the ZF Group, is a heated seat belt that warms a driver's body on a cold morning. but its bigger promise is to deliver longer-lasting batteries for electric vehicles. So essentially, this is kind of like an electric blanket for your seatbelt.
Yeah, exactly, to keep you from cranking the heater.
And so that was one of the issues that we talked about, was the idea with electric cars is that the climate control sucks up a lot of juice.
But in the winter, Chuck, how's the seatbelt going to defrost a window, a windshield?
Well, and so again, this goes back to the idea of, I think a lot of these car manufacturers, I always talk about like the Japanese car manufacturers. I don't think they've been to Chicago. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things.
They've never visited Chicago.
You never visited Chicago and it's 30 below zero.
I just don't.
I mean, even like Tesla, they had the frozen doors and the frozen charging ports that I think, made down in Texas and California. I don't think those guys have ever been up to Chicago and it's 30 below zero and drove a Tesla around for a week. I've seen Teslas spinning around downtown in the
Talked
ice.
to an old friend of mine today. His son has a new BMW, all electric, and he said he was so thankful. He got it in January. He was so thankful to see the summer come because he gets 20 more miles distance out of his electric battery because he doesn't work it to death.
And there's also that, you're obviously a combustion vehicle runs a little bit differently in different temperatures, but the battery, an electric car, the battery is a different animal.
Oh, absolutely.
In the wintertime. And the colder it is, the worse off you're going to be.
Oh, absolutely. The more juice you're going to use.
So this idea is, instead of you warming the entire cabin, you're just warming your body. You're warming your buns. If you bought the upgrade, mind you, it's an extra $20 a month.
If you
a
month,
for
yeah,
it.
so much a month.
So you bought the electric seats, you buy the electric seatbelt, and the idea is now. But to your point, that's a very valid observation, is the idea of, okay, well, now I still got to warm up my window. Now my windows are all frozen. How am I going to heat those up?
You still got to turn it on.
You still got to turn it on.
You don't have a choice. And the heated seatbelt is like, are they going to have an air-conditioned seatbelt?
Right.
I mean, come on. You're going to turn the air on in the summer.
Those old...
The reason he likes this weather, that young man, he gets more mileage because he doesn't have to run either one.
Right.
He doesn't have to run the air. He doesn't have to run the heat.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, is that you never thought about that. You just cranked up the air, you cranked up the heat, and it wasn't something you thought about because it affected mileage, sure, but nothing negligible.
It did not tell me how far I could go on my trip.
Right. I'm saying you didn't notice in a normal gas vehicle. So again, this is as we get into this new technology, electric vehicles, now we have to rethink the climate control and things like. But again, you're getting to this point of, this sounds like a hassle to me. This idea of
a hassle.
I mean, think about if I'm wearing my thick coat in the morning, I'm going to put an electric seatbelt on. How's it going to get through my big heavy coat?
It's not.
So what's it going to do for me?
Put your seatbelt on first and then your coat.
But I'm going to be afraid to turn the heat on because I don't know if I'm going to have enough juice to make it to work in the morning.
Well, that's what I'm just telling you. This doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
The heated seatbelt, you can scratch that one, wad it up and throw it away. We're not keeping that one. That's just not going to get it. A heated seatbelt, nah. I got to tell you, Chuck, you talked about this or that and these electric cars, and is there an alternative? Toyota has those alternative fuels that they're going to try and get certified.
Right.
Well, I don't see the government helping them at all. But Toyota also has a hydrogen combustion engine. This is an engine that does not make a hydrogen fuel cell. It has nothing to do with electricity. It's your car with a hydrogen engine in it, running on hydrogen, putting nothing out the tailpipe. And it can also, if the technology gets done enough, it will actually cut out oil, gas, all the different people, because that engine could make its own electricity and hydrogen if the technology gets into place. And Toyota apparently is not big on the electric vehicles. They have a couple out there, and they're staying up with everybody, but it's hydrogen does not it promising better performance under extreme temperatures and heavy loads. But hurdles remain, especially the lack of fueling infrastructure. That's another thing. If we had gas stations with hydrogen, you could just go there and fill up. You wouldn't have to have the technology in your car to build its own hydrogen. But you have an alternator and you have a battery. You can make hydrogen if you've got a little bit of water. Okay? But to have the good stuff, you could probably just go to the gas station, or the hydrogen station, we'll call it. We can call it the hydro station. Chuck, I'm telling you, we got to have an alternative to electricity, and this could be it. They have a race car they ran last year or the year before on this engine. They've been working on this for a while. This didn't come up yesterday. And it's 100% internal combustion, but it runs on hydrogen. Yeah, baby. All right, Chuck's got another innovative new technology we're going to run through the comb here.
Well, this one I wouldn't say is so much innovative as it is intrusive, I would say. So you handed me this one. We mentioned this a couple times on the show. And again, I'll get back on my soapbox for a second and say that that there is an intrinsic relationship between politics and living your life. And this is an example of that. And again, I'm not picking on one party or the other or what have you. I'm just saying in general that this is an interesting story about how government can change the way that things work.
They can change everything.
So
they can change your underwear if they want.
So now we talked about this before. So now there is a mandate that all vehicles, and I forget, I don't know if you had the date on this, at 2025 or whenever year it is. So moving forward, all vehicles are going to have a device to determine if you are drunk or not. Now, on the surface, you say, okay, drunk driving is a problem.
It is.
This is something we have to find a way to solve.
It should be stopped.
So then, we've talked about this recently. The idea is everybody going to have to blow into a straw every morning when they get in their car?
Yes, they are.
Well, so no, this is interesting, though, George. This article you handed me talks about a passive device. So it's almost like, how you have like a carbon monoxide detector in your house?
Okay.
It would be similar to like a carbon monoxide detector, but it'd be an alcohol detector. It would separate the alcohol molecules from the natural carbon dioxide in a driver's exhaled breath. So instead of breathing into a tube, there'd be a sensor in your car that would smell your breath. What a great job that is. It would smell your breath every morning. And if it thinks you're drunk, I assume it will shut down your car. And so what's interesting about this is you say, well, where did this come from? This mandate was buried in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021.
That $3 trillion mess.
So again, this another interesting aspect of American government is buried in an infrastructure bill to rebuild bridges and train tracks and what have you, rebuild the roads. By the way, there's now going to be
you can't go have 3 beers after work and then drive home.
Well, and then
against the rules.
Well, so now you bring up an interesting thing, George. Now, do we have? I don't know about this. Do we now have a federally mandated level? Because remember, there were some states it was 0.08.
0.08, yeah.
Well, no, I think now it's down to like 0.07 or something.
The problem I have with this whole thing, what if you go out with your bride or your girlfriend?
Good point.
And you're loaded to the gills.
Right.
So you get in the passenger seat and she's going to drive.
Right.
And she's only had a little bit.
So now you can't talk the whole ride.
Yeah, you got to shut up all the way home. Don't open your mouth.
No, okay. So
because the detector will go slap, slap.
So again, we bring this up. It's funny because these are important things. Because even the article mentions. So imagine, I don't know. Like, let's say you rinse out your mouth with, whatever chloroseptic. What is it? Whatever the alcohol based mouthwash is in the morning. You hop in the car. And now it detects that you're drunk. Does it call the police and say, hey, there's a guy trying to drive drunk? So it talks
driving under the influence of Listerine.
Come on. So this even talks about a false breath reading could become a legal minefield. So here, okay.
God.
So let's go back to your analogy. So my friend calls me, said, hey, I had too much to drink. Can you call? I'm being responsible. Come pick me up. I pick up my friend. We had so much to drink. Now the whole car smells of...
reeks of liquor.
Okay, so now my car shuts off. The police come, and I have to spend an hour explaining to them, no, sir, I'm not drunk. My friend here is drunk. I'm trying to give him a ride home. And now I have to, now you have that they're going to run your plate. They're going to do all these things. You're going to sit on the side of the road for an hour.
Absolutely.
So this becomes another issue of, and I don't want to get too far on the soapbox, but I always go back to this government tries to find solutions to sometimes the solution is worse than the problem. And obviously we all agree that drunk driving is a problem.
No, it is a problem.
And so I've always said the technology, even Uber, I've always said Uber has done more to prevent drunk driving accidents than any other technology we've ever come up with.
Oh, I agree. Uber, Lyft, the whole rideshare thing.
Rideshare, getting people a ride home.
But now their cars are going to have detectors and you can't go getting loaded because they won't pick you up because the car will die.
So again, it's like so now, you're right. That's a crazy thing. Imagine the Uber guy gets fired because he gives a drunk guy a ride home.